What's up, family? What's up, my black and intellectual crew? It is Monday, February the 19th, 2018, and I want to go ahead and get started. Today I'm going to talk about the story that I came across about ICE detaining African immigrants. Specifically, the name of the title is Deportation of African and Other Black Immigrants is Quietly Increasing and No One is Taking Notes. I found that on Atlanta Black Star. You guys should check that out. I'm going to be talking about that. I'm going to continue my discussion about Black Panther, mostly about the records that the movie is breaking and how it has exceeded expectations, how no one really expected this movie to perform as well as it has performed. So I'm going to talk about that and my opinions on that. And then for today's Black History Month profile, I'm going to talk about a few people. Not in a whole lot of detail, though. The way I have done individual people from Black history in the past. I'm going to talk about a group of people because some of these people, I'm going to talk about Black inventors, to be more specific. And some of these people, they don't have like this huge, they don't have a whole lot of information online about them. So I decided to talk about a few people together, just a bunch of people together in one category. And then I'm going to talk about specifically about what they invented and the impact that they had. So let me do a few other things first before I get started. Okay, so that looks good. That looks good. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So, Atlanta Black Star ran a story, and this is kind of an old story, but I saw it on social media, and I wanted to talk about it because oftentimes when it comes to ICE and some of these other topics, it's only talked about from the point of view of from a certain angle. I would just put it like that. And I think this story is important because it goes to show you that, as I've been talking about and as I've been saying for several weeks now and several months, this immigration issue involves people of African descent too, and it involves people of Caribbean descent. It involves all sorts of people from all around the world. It's not just talking about one specific group of people. So this article says, although often not covered in the media, the African immigrant community is facing mass deportations in the era of Donald Trump. While the immigration debate in the United States is often framed in terms of undocumented immigrants from Mexico and Central America, which is what I was just alluding to, on the one hand, and the infamous Muslim travel ban on the other, the issue is more complicated. As the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which is ICE, agency conducts its sweeps on immigrant communities, African people are among those who are being detained and deported. While deportations were not in short supply under the Obama administration, which is something that, by the way, he should definitely be getting a lot more criticism and flack for than he actually does. But it continues and it says these deportations are expected to soar under Trump, whose immigration ban on 6 Muslim nations includes 3 African nations, Libya, Somalia, and Sudan. And there's a huge Somali population in Minnesota. In other parts of the country too, but there's specifically a huge Somali population there. Trump also is clamping down on refugees and asylum seekers. Okay, so according to data from the Department of Homeland Security in 2015, ICE deported 1,293 African immigrants. Since the 2016 election, the ICE raids on black immigrant communities have intensified. For example, in January, 86 men and women were deported to Mogadishu, the capital of Somalia, after being detained and imprisoned, as AfricaNews.com reported, and as they reported. So in November, 106 immigrants were deported to Ghana, and 20 people were also deported to Liberia. Those are countries, by the way, that aren't on the Muslim travel ban. I just want people to know that. So it goes to show you that that's sort of the vehicle they're using. That's the excuse that they're using. But understand that there's a larger dragnet that they have in place where they want to lump in all sorts of different groups of people outside of just Muslims. So don't let them fool you with, oh, it's just about Muslims. I mean, that's not cool either, but it's much worse than that. And what they want, their agenda is much more insidious than that. While 53 others were processed for deportation. And so then it says earlier this month, ICE deported 130 people to Senegal, 6 times the number recorded by the agency in its 2016 report. Okay, there are 2.5 million African immigrants in the United States, according to the Pew Research Center. When including the Caribbean, Latin America, and other regions, there are as many as 5 million black immigrants in the United States. People from Africa experience the fastest growth rate. Listen to this. People from Africa experience the fastest growth rate of the immigrant groups coming to the United States. 41% between 2000 and 2013. In its, quote, State of Black Immigrants 2016 report, end quote, co-authored by the New York University School of Law Immigrant Rights Clinic, the Black Alliance for Just Immigration, also known as BAJI, found that black immigrants are much more likely to be deported due to a criminal conviction than nationals from other regions of the world. More than 1 out of 5 non-citizens facing deportation on criminal grounds is black. Tia Oso, national organizer for BAJI, whose organization works on advocacy, education, and direct action on issues impacting black immigrants and African Americans, said there is not nearly enough coverage of what is happening regarding the deportations. Not all immigrants are treated equally or being targeted by immigration agents. For example, there are approximately 50,000 undocumented Irish immigrants in the United States. You never hear about this, do you? As CNN reported, yet they are not facing the threat of police raids and deportations. So that's something very important that I want to stop and talk about for a second. Because it's not just Irish either. You have a lot of Russian illegal immigrants too that nobody's talking about. Because that's not who they want to target. They want to just like when it comes to terrorism, okay, and when it comes to drugs and the drug war. When people in the dominant society talk about these issues, okay, their agenda is to make non-whites the face of these problems. So they want to make black and brown people, specifically black people, the face of drug usage. Okay, they want to make black and brown people, specifically brown people, the face of undocumented immigration. Okay, but understand, and even when it comes to terrorism, they want to make black and brown people the face of terrorism. Okay, they ignore people who look like them, who also fall into these categories, because the intent is to not go after them. Okay, and yes, you wouldn't know that you have Irish and Eastern European illegal or undocumented immigrants living in the country. A lot of people say Trump's own wife and her members of her family are undocumented. You're never going to hear this though, and that's very intentional, because that it kind of gets to the point that a lot of what they do is racial. A lot of their agenda is racial. Okay, so they hide that. They hide those statistics. They hide those numbers. Okay, it says, but if this was a, and it says this is a quote from someone CNN spoke to. It says, if this was about immigration, then the undocumented Irish and European folks who um, would be part of the roundups also said, and then they said also continued to say the people being deported are from Mexico, Central America, the Dominican Republic, and Haiti. So this is about keeping America white, not making America great. And I've said numerous times on my program or on my platform, okay, there is a deep racial agenda behind the immigration issue. Okay, there is a deep, deep racial agenda here. Okay, and not just with the immigration issue, with the Muslim ban, there's a racial agenda there. Okay, people have to look beneath the surface and read between the lines and understand that, you know, the people pushing these arguments, the people pushing this agenda, have white supremacist goals in mind. Okay, which is why people have to be. I'm gonna keep hammering this home until people get it. Like, you have to be very careful about pushing these arguments that you hear some of these people saying, because it's deeper than what they let on. It's a lot deeper than what you might realize or not. So I want to see if there's something else from this article that I want to read. That's basically the gist of what I wanted to get into. Hold on one second. Okay. So that looks like there's some graphs, but for some strange reason, they don't have a way of, on Atlanta Black Star, they don't have a way of clicking on these graphs and making them larger. So I can kind of basically see that they have like the top 10 countries of origin for African immigrants, and most of them come from Nigeria. The vast majority come from Nigeria. A lot are from Ethiopia too, though. Ethiopia, Ghana. So we just have to be mindful of the agendas at work here in this country, and we really can't trust these white supremacists in power under any circumstances. So let's talk about Black Panther and the records that this movie is breaking. Okay, this movie is breaking all kinds of records. I wrote on blackandintellectual.com, let me pull it up. I want to plug this article that I wrote. I wrote basically my review of the movie. So you guys know I did the spoiler review on Friday. I included the spoiler review video in the article itself. But then in the article, I sort of elaborated a little bit more on the characters, each of the characters. And I added some things that I didn't really have time to, or I kind of forgot to include in the actual video review. So I break down all of the characters, and then I also break down the world building of Wakanda and why that's so important. Okay, and how much, you know, Wakanda is such a rich civilization that there's so much that they didn't include in the movie that they could have included. Okay, but they just didn't have the time to. But specifically, the article, what I wanted to really get to in the article that I might have to elaborate on more in the future is Afrofuturism's coming of age moment. Because Afrofuturism has been around for a while now, but a lot of people, it was kind of this underground sort of thing. A lot of people didn't really know about it like that. It was really only something that a lot of black nerds knew about. It was really kind of something that we were hip to, because we were really the only ones talking about science fiction and fantasy, because we were really the only ones reading science fiction and fantasy. A lot of black people, unfortunately, before Black Panther, didn't really get into science fiction and fantasy like that. And I see Black Panther being a vehicle to change that. Because there's a lot of fertile ground, and I think people are tired of. We're at a point now where people are tired of seeing a lot of the same images of blackness, even contemporary images. I'm not just talking about slavery and oppression stories and things like that. I'm talking about just regular contemporary stories. You know, people are tired of that stuff. Even people are wanting to dream in the black community. People are wanting to see these fantastical worlds portrayed in the black community. People want to see black, inventors and black scientists and black heroes from a futuristic and scientific and even fantasy perspective. I think it's important that we allow ourselves to dream that way. And too many of our stories, and I think this is a reflection of our struggles in this country and around the world, too many of our stories have been put into a box. And there's this very narrow box where, the stories that are being told are either musicals or stories about the black assistants, the black slaves, the black, there's this whole list of like six different archetypes that you usually see, 6 or maybe even 9 archetypes that you see black characters and stories falling into. Okay, and Black Panther is completely different from all of those. Okay, so because of that, Black Panther is breaking all kinds of records. AMC Theaters came out and said Black Panther is their top grossing film in history in 80 of their theaters. At first they came out and said it was just 33, but then later they came out and said no, it's 80, and that represents, I think they said, a tenth. Let me read the article. More than 10% of the entire circuit. Yeah. So more than 10% of all AMC theaters in the United States broke records. More people came, and yeah, they were probably in mostly, predominantly black areas, but I'm cool with that. That's to be expected. So this movie is doing incredible. It's the highest rated movie for any MCU film on Rotten Tomatoes. It's currently sitting at 97. Okay, it's IMAX ticket pre-sales were ahead all of Marvel films. So Black Panther IMAX ticket pre-sales beat all other Marvel films. Okay, that includes the Captain America movies. That includes the Iron Man movies. That includes the Avengers movies. Okay, Black Panther is killing it right now. Okay, Black Panther set the record for February Thursday night previews. Okay, so Black Panther got off to a strong start thanks to its Thursday night previews. The film raked in a hefty $25.2 million at the U.S. box office on February the 15th, not only doubling Deadpool's previous record of $12.7 million, but also becoming one of the highest grossing previews ever for a superhero film. Black Panther's passed Captain America Civil War for $25 million to score the second highest preview gross for a Marvel film, behind only Avengers Infinity War, which was at $27.6 million. And the fourth highest for a superhero film behind The Dark Knight Rises, which was at $30.6 million. Like, that's how close Black Panther came to even beating a film like The Dark Knight Rises. It came $5 million short. Black Panther's opening day gross tops all non-team films. So if you take out all of the films like the Avengers films, which are like the team-up films, it had the highest opening day gross of all those films. So Black Panther continued to rake in big bucks following its preview night. So on Friday, after the Thursday showings were over, it continued this into Friday. On opening day, February 17th, Black Panther grossed an estimated $75.8 million toppling Deadpool, beating Deadpool once again, which had the record for 47.3 million. It also topped Captain America: Civil War and The Dark Knight Rises to secure the 8th spot on the chart of the highest grossing opening days of all time. In fact, it's only a few $1,000,000 short of tying 2012's The Inventors, which had the record of 80.8 million. Okay. And then, of course, Black Panther set the record for February openings. And I saw something on Twitter that said not just February openings, which was currently held by Deadpool, but February, March, and April openings. Okay, so this movie is very important because what a lot of people try to do when it comes to black, and I've noticed this unfortunately, when it comes to a lot of black films that do have a positive message, what you'll find too often is they will a lot of these white-owned companies will play down the film's importance and won't really promote the film abroad, internationally. So you won't really see the movie get a whole lot of love overseas. They'll put money into films like The Help. They'll put money into films like 12 Years a Slave, which was a good movie, but again, it was a slave movie, okay? They'll put money into films that make black people look bad. And this is not a good thing because this has a lot to do with our image. Okay, they are wanting to project black images a certain way. Okay, overseas. So oftentimes, they'll promote and they'll give a wide release internationally to films that show us negatively. But historically, before Black Panther, if it was a certain type of film that showed black people in a positive light, they don't promote that stuff. They don't put money behind that stuff. And the old saying was, the old myth was, oh well, they don't do good. They're not going to do good overseas. No, that's not true. That's not true. It was about how they wanted to present us to the world. The negative perception that they wanted people around the world to have of us. Okay, so Black Panther is doing incredible. Black Panther is doing big things. Okay, and then the last story I wanted to, when it's not really a story, but I wanted to speak on black inventors in the past who haven't really gotten a lot of support and haven't gotten a lot of publicity. Okay, so let me pull that up. This is from a website called thinkgrowth.org, and the title of the article is 14 Black Inventors You Probably Didn't Know About. I'm not going to go through each one, but it says many people have read the story of how George Washington Carver invented peanut butter. Others are familiar with the story of Sarah Breedlove, aka Madam C.J. Walker, who I talked about recently. The inventor of beauty products and the first woman to become a self-made millionaire in America. And thanks to the Academy Award nominated film Hidden Figures, we're now all familiar with the amazing contributions of Katherine Johnson, Dorothy Vaughan, and Mary Jackson. But here are some other people that you probably haven't heard of. You have Dr. Shirley Jackson, who is a theoretical physicist, and her major development is the touch-tone telephone, caller ID, and fiber optic cables. It says Dr. Shirley Jackson is an American physicist who received her PhD from Massachusetts Institute of Technology, or MIT, in 1973. She was the first African-American woman to earn a doctorate in nuclear physics at MIT. Okay, her experiments with theoretical physics paved the way for numerous developments in the telecommunication space, including the touch-tone telephone, the portable fax, caller ID, call waiting, and the fiber optic cable. Okay, a lot of people don't even know that a black woman was behind a lot of that stuff. And here's the thing, like, they don't give us credit. They really don't. They'll give, they give certain white engineers and certain white entrepreneurs and certain white techie people like Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk and some of these other people, especially people on social media who have created social media platforms. It's those types of people who get a lot of publicity. You don't oftentimes hear about the black inventors, the black engineers, the black tech people who contributed to some of the success of major companies. Okay, and this is why it's important that black people go into business for themselves, so we can start being the vehicles behind our own success. We need to kind of get off this thing where we're enriching other groups of people. We need to start enriching ourselves. If there's anything that you learn from Black Panther, the movie, it's the importance of self-enrichment. And in a way, and I think I'm gonna have to write an article about this, about how sometimes we might need to become a little isolationist. There's a message in Black Panther, to go back to that for a second. There's a message, I think, within Black Panther of, a lot of people have talked about Wakanda's isolationism from a negative point of view. But I think there's a deeper message there that, Wakanda probably wouldn't have reached its technological advancement without its isolationism. Which is again a knock against the Killmonger argument, because Killmonger was like, well, where were you guys at? Well, we were hiding from the white supremacists, basically, is what the Wakandans would say. If we had come out and if the world had known what we really had here, we probably wouldn't have all of this. So our isolationism, our sort of protection of our own is really in many ways what kept us alive. It's what kept us from being conquered. And I think there's a lot of people only want to look at Killmonger because they see the African American in many ways within Killmonger, and people only want to say, well, Black Panther is they're elitists and things like that. Well, in a way they are, but in a way too, it shows you that sometimes you need to kind of cut yourself off from other groups of people if it means that you're going to get things done yourself. And you might get more done by being a little exclusive. Okay, you might be able to get more done by being a little bit more exclusive and working amongst yourselves than you will always making it known and always sharing what you've created with the world and with everybody else. Because when you share what you've created with everybody else, you kind of dilute it in many ways. You lose control of it. That's why I've read some people who said they didn't really like how at the end of Black Panther, T'Challa came out and said Wakanda was going to share their technology with the world. A lot of people didn't really like that, and I kind of understand where some people came from, and I kind of disagree with that. I agree and I disagree with that, but I just wanted to put that out there to bring up Black Panther and add that to the discussion a little bit more when it comes to talking about black inventors, and how a lot of times we invent stuff that gets co-opted. And because we don't invent things to be used for the community, we invent things that end up, because we want to be the inclusive ones. We don't want to be isolationists. We don't want to, we don't really want to build amongst ourselves. We think that we have to share everything with the world. You know what I'm saying? And that kind of opens the door for things that we create to be used by people who aren't in our community. And it enriches them, and it doesn't really enrich us. So that's my little 2 cents about that. But let me continue. So you have Lewis Latimer. Okay, Lewis Latimer Uh, One of the things he's known for is the carbon filament. So he was an inventor and engineer, born in Massachusetts, in 1848, and he collaborated with Hiram Maxim and Thomas Edison. One of Latimer's greatest inventions was the carbon filament, a vital component of the light bulb. Okay, Lewis Latimer doesn't get credit for I wouldn't say he invented the light bulb. I'm not going to go that far. But he created a component of the light bulb where the light bulb really wouldn't exist without it. You know what I'm saying? So his inventions didn't stop there. Working with Alexander Graham Bell, Latimer helped draft the patent for Bell's design of the telephone. Okay, this genius also designed an improved railroad car bathroom and an early air conditioning unit. So the next time you're escaping, this is what the article says. So the next time you're escaping a hot day inside your cool house, don't forget to thank Lewis Latimer. Okay, and look at how much Alexander Graham Bell and Thomas Edison, look at how much credit they get historically. You know, you have an entire company that was started off of a patent that was partially built and created by a black inventor named Lewis Latimer. Okay, doesn't get the credit he deserves. Okay, so who else do we have here? There's a man by the name of Otis Boykin. Okay, yes, it has listed here his major developments: the IBM computer and the pacemaker. Boykin had 26 patents in his name and is famed for his development of IBM computers, burglar-proof cash registers, chemical air filters, and an electronic resistor used in controlled missiles and other devices. Okay. You have Philip Emeagwali. He's a scientist, and he's actually still living, born in 1954. Major developments: the world's fastest computer. Okay. And he has been called the Bill Gates of Africa. As an adult, Emeagwali began studying nature, specifically bees. The construction of the honeycomb inspired the construction of the honeycomb inspired him to rethink computer processing. So in 1989, he put his idea to work, using 65,000 processes to invent the world's first supercomputer, able to perform 3.1 billion calculations per second. Okay, so there are a lot of black inventors, known and unknown, who have definitely played a role in America being the country that it is today. And this is why, honestly, not only do black people, we don't really get credit that we deserve on a number of levels in this country, which is why Black History Month is very important. It's not just the role that we've played in terms of creating things and inventing things. A lot of people don't know the role that black women played in the NASA space race. A lot of people didn't know that until the Hidden Figures movie came out. Okay, and I'm not going to say I knew about it. I didn't know about it. Most people, I would say, didn't know about it until that movie came out. Okay, but even like America, in the beginning years of this nation, you know, the role that slaves played, you know, and creating this capitalistic empire. You know, you never hear people say that because of slavery, America wouldn't have had the capitalistic resources that it had to fight the world wars. You know, to fight honestly, all of those wars. None of those wars would have been able to be fought. Okay, during slavery and in the immediate years after slavery, none of that stuff would have been able to be fought without black labor, free black labor. I don't think people realize the amount of money that was made in those early days, because they were able to just buy a slave one time and just give, spend the bare money, as little money as possible for upkeep, for clothes and food and things like that, and spend as little money as possible on those things and make money hand over fist, because slaves weren't paid. Obviously, they were slaves. They didn't get a wage. So you had free labor for generations in this country. American society, American culture wouldn't be what it is today without black people. And that's a fact. But that's going to be the show for today, folks. Follow me on Twitter @_blackintellect. Join my mailing list on my blog, www.blackandintellectual.com. And follow me on YouTube @blackintellectual. Or just type it into the YouTube search engine, and it should be the first thing that comes up. And I will talk to you guys on Wednesday at 12 p.m. noon, like always. See you then.